And we are recording episode 1007 with Miss Mitzi Perdue on Thursday, December 1st, 2022 at 4:08 p.m. Eastern Time. You just told me your new quote, do you prefer comfort or vibrancy? And I love that. This quote isn't mine, but it's one I've always loved is suffer the pain of discipline or suffer the pain of regret. But you can't avoid. You got to choose one.
Yeah, I've heard you say that over the years, and I treasure it. And I kind of like the Spartan approach of do one really difficult thing, one unpleasant thing each day, and kind of build your character. And one of the things that I do every single day is I take a cold shower. And well, I'm used to it, so it's not hard anymore. But as I'm getting in, I tell myself, do you prefer comfort or vibrancy? And I go with vibrancy.
I actually really like that. Do you prefer comfort or vibrancy? Because that's what it is, right? It's you can stay in bed or you can go to the gym. Going to the gym sucks, but when you leave the gym, you feel like you've been electrocuted in like a good way. And
Exactly. I mean, okay, this is so boastful and presumptuous, but being the person I am, I'll go be presumptuous. But I kind of think that if I didn't have this attitude of doing at least one really difficult thing a day, and let me amend that, somewhat difficult thing a day, I think I'd look older than I do at 81.
yes, you are a very vibrant 81-year-old. So the proof is in the pudding. And that's not just my feedback. That is everybody's feedback, especially
Oh,
my mom and my aunt. They love you. They want to be you at 81. So it is working. It is absolutely working.
okay. Cold showers, use use the staircase rather than the elevator on the eighth floor. I just think all of those little things kind of add up to vibrancy.
They absolutely do. But it's
I mean,
also,
I hope they do.
well, they have to. They absolutely do. But it's also, I don't know, taking the comfortable way never there's a limited amount of enjoyment you can get out of any one thing in any given day. And the longer I'm alive and the more I reflect on it and examine it, you can't even increase the amount of enjoyment you get out of something. There's just, do you want it now or do you want it later? It's pretty, and you can't really get rid of unenjoyment. There just seems to be a balanced scale. And I always just prefer to, the first thing I do when I wake up is go to the gym because it's the part of the day I hate the most.
Yep.
And then I shower and I even meditation's beautiful, but it still takes like mental exertion. It is a chore. I love the effects of it, just like I love the effects of a gym, but I don't like doing it, but I still do it every day. That when I'm at the gym, I knock out an hour of an audiobook. That's the first thing. I get rid of that. So I learn. And then I do the podcast. And then the second half of my day is just letting the podcast upload, playing video games, relaxing, putting on pajamas. And I really don't think there's any way to remove the pain. There's no way to remove subjective suffering, and there's no way to amplify joy and pleasure and happiness. It's just you have vegetables and you have dessert. You cannot get rid of the vegetables. You cannot expand the dessert. What are you going to do? You're going to eat the vegetables first so that you have dessert second. It's
Well,
just,
okay, then I
it
have a
always
great
seems
answer to all of that. You're ready for enlightenment? Of course
okay.
you are.
Okay.
You're Tommy. Here's
Okay.
enlightenment. Comes from Mark Twain. Mark Twain said, if your job involves eating a live frog, do it the first thing in the morning, get it over with. And if your job involves eating 2 live frogs, eat the biggest one first. And I love that. It guides my life because get the bad thing over with, and then the rest of your day is pretty good.
I was in this apartment for maybe 18 hours when I started setting up the studio because there's setting up a studio sucks. It is just a thousand thumbtacks. It's putting all the panels up. It's getting all the wires out, straightening them, finding out where the electronics go, how many things can you overload each outlet with, how do you want the layout. You got to assemble the tables and get the Allen wrench and put everything up and get the lighting, and where do you want the flag in the center, where am I going to put the camera, and get the chair. And it's just, and then you got boxes all throughout the apartment, and it's the very first thing. I was sick when I moved up here, and I literally woke up and was like, this is gonna, and it's gonna suck, and it's not even gonna happen in one day. It's probably, and I was right. It took about 7 days, and I was like, just start. It sucks. I'm tired. I don't even have internet. I got to get a new license. I don't know where the grocery store is, but it's just like, yeah, eat the frog, and it's just start putting the thumb, just start doing it, and and now you blink your eyes, and I've been here a month, and you don't even think about it anymore, but it's over. And
Well, that reminds me of another thing that guides my life, which is we overestimate what we can do in a day and we underestimate what we can do in a year. And
that's
so my plan is do one big thing each day. And by the end of the year, you've done a lot of stuff.
I really like that quote. That's another thing I've kind of realized is like this year I've I've lost the most weight and gained the most muscle that I have in one year, probably than I ever have before. And it's because I stopped looking at it as like, I'm gonna lose a pound today. I'm gonna work out for 2 hours. I just do the tiniest unit of something that I know I can do every day. And I was talking to my little brother about this, is the way I try to like visualize things done in a year is like, think of, whenever you're a kid and you're drawing with chalk on like pavement or something, and like how long it takes to, draw something big. And
Yeah.
then when you look at like the lines painted on a highway and you see how it's done, it's just a truck driving, and it's got like a little machine thing that like drops the paintbrush and just, and you don't have to be going 100 miles an hour. You just have to drop the paintbrush and it will paint a line much longer than you ever could. And that's kind of how I look at long-term goals. Is I find you don't want to do the absolute smallest thing. You want to find the biggest action that you can repeat every day. And what I do is I make my to-do list when I'm exhausted, not when the caffeine's kicking in the morning and the sun's shining. I make my to-do list when I can barely keep my eyes open, because I'm like, whatever to-do list I make now, I know I can do, because it's like two things long. If you make it in the morning after a run and you drinking a coffee, you're like, I'm gonna build a building. I'm gonna, it's like, no, you're not. And so find the biggest small unit that you can repeat every day. My workout lasts about 18 minutes. That's it. I listen to
Really?
it. That's it. Because I know I can do that 7 days. Now, granted, there's no breaks. It's nonstop weightlifting, but that's the biggest small unit I can. So when I wake up, and there's a reason to, because it takes about 30 seconds to walk down 5 flights of stairs and go to the gym. It takes about a minute to come back up. The reason I keep it at that is because when I leave my front door, no matter how tired I am, I look at my phone and I start my stopwatch and I go, you can be back in 20 minutes. You spend 20 minutes not even realizing it, scrolling through Facebook. So I always tell myself, it's not, we got to go work out for 4 hours. No, I just tell myself, and I've been doing this for the entire time I've been lifting weights, about 17 years, as I keep it at about 20 minutes, because I know 7 days a week, 30 days a month, I can do that. And the purpose of finding that biggest small unit that you can repeat every day, there's a reason I only listen to 1 hour of an audiobook a day. I could do a lot more, but I only do one. That's it. Because, like the truck with the paintbrush dropping the paint, a year will go by. And instead of having 5 big workouts where you went to the gym for an hour, you have 365 smaller workouts. But when you put all those together, they dwarf the 5 workouts. And you look back over a year and you're like, I can do like 80 more push-ups. I can do pull-ups. This year I think I've read 41 like nonfiction audiobooks. And I look back at that and I'm like, it never once feels like I've read a book about a history of like German arms manufacturing and silicon chip manufacturing and whatever. But when you look back over a year, you realize it is just the truck with the paintbrush. It just drops it down. And and then, so on the microcosm, you get the worst thing done out of the way first. You eat the frog or you eat the bigger frog. You keep it small. I always look at my phone and I go, you can be back in this room in 20 minutes. All right, I'll go do it. And then you keep doing it and you never quite feel like you're doing a whole lot of work. But
Yeah.
then you look back over a year and you're like, how did this all happen? How did this? I've done almost 365 episodes this year,
All
but it
right,
never
I'll
feels
give you
like that.
another answer because I'm good at delivering answers. This is me. It's how to eat an elephant, one
Yeah.
bite at a time. You can't open your mouth real wide and eat the whole elephant, but you can eat like a teaspoon at a time.
Or to quote the great Dale Comstock, the youngest ever member of Delta Force,
Mhm.
how do you eat multiple elephants at a time?
Oh,
You
what did
take
he say to that?
you take multiple bites at a time. All right, Dale. Well, that's you. I can't do that, but that's Dale. But yeah, no, it's just the tiniest little. It's and but there is there is kind of like an importance here. Is like, don't just go do the tiniest thing, because if you go do one push up and you go listen to 30 seconds of an audiobook, that's actually not really going to accumulate. It's good if you've never done anything before. There is an importance of sort of moving your mental Overton window into acceptance of this is what we do now. We're doing one push up a day. That's important for beginners. But the value is finding the most you can do. It's the biggest small unit. You want to push it. My workouts aren't easy. I push myself to the limit, but it's just enough that I know I can do it 7 days a week. I know I can do it nonstop.
Yeah, to me,
And
it's the largest unit and the smallest unit that you will do.
yes, don't and you have to base it on what you've done before. You can't go, well, I know I'll do this. No, you have to like troubleshoot it. You have to do like in the field research and be like, okay, I know I can do 18 minutes. Maybe for you it's 9 minutes, maybe for you it's 30 minutes. Go find the thing. And through repetition, you'll realize you're like, I think that's about where I tap out. I can do 18 minutes. I know I can meditate every day for about 25 minutes. Find that upper limit and then just copy and paste every single day, every week, every month. And by the end of the year, you'll look back and what you have achieved will be better than even your most delusional, grandiose goals.
Which gets right back to we overestimate what we can do in a day and we underestimate what we can do in a year.
Yes, exactly.
And I'm up against something a little like that, which is learning Ukrainian. At 81, trying to learn a new language, how about that's work? It doesn't come natural. I bet it's like for you doubling your number of push-ups.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do I go about that? And first of all, let's get into why I want to learn Ukrainian. I was in Ukraine for 5 days at the end of August. I got invited back. Woo-hoo. I'm going to be there roughly mid-December, towards the end of December. And I'm so excited to be invited back. But I thought as long as I'm being honored by being invited back, and the group that's inviting me back is the Kyiv Region Police. And oh boy, the stories I'm going to be doing. They have lined up for me things like, well, like there's at least 250,000 Ukrainian children that have been abducted, taken away from their parents and taken to Ukraine. Are you familiar with that?
I think you told me about that.
It's not a widely known story, but they've got just really good records of each one. And the Russians are doing something so particularly horrible. Shasliva, that's a word for horrible that I just learned. They take the kids and they take them from school, and under the guise of this kid is under so much stress, the child needs to go to camp just to be away from all the stress of the war, and they take them to a remote part of Russia, and Russia's 11 time zones. And then when the parents try to get them back, they say, oh, we don't have enough money to send them back. You have to come get them. And then the parents are stranded in Russia. They spend the money to go to some Far East place, like 7 time zones away. And then the Russians won't let them leave. And you might wonder, why would the Russians be doing this? And the answer is Russia is facing a population crash. They have, their death rate is increased and their birth rate is collapsing, with the result that that they're losing a population of like millions and millions. And so they simply want to kidnap Ukrainians, and first you get the kids and then you get the parents. And in the process, you depopulate Ukraine, which is another of their goals.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I get to write about things like that. And so, although there are a lot of people that I'll be interacting with who speak English, I thought that it would show a lot of respect to them if I can say a lot of nice things in Ukrainian back to them. So that's my plan. And how about, it's really hard to buckle down to try to memorize vocabulary and phrases and grammar. The only way I can do it is promise myself, you can do this for 10 minutes. You can muster the focus and the concentration for 10 minutes and do that at least once a day. And then if you can do it several times, that's great. But along the way, I think, words that just seemed impossible to me 10 days ago, now they just roll off the tongue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's but so there's kind of a value in that, is like the baby steps, the little increments, repeating we underestimate what we can do in a year. There's also like there's another aspect to it, and it's you have to want to do the thing. Like I can explain about how to achieve long-term goals, but if somebody told me, all right, Tommy, I want to see you learn how to play violin. Well, how you would do it is you would do the smallest, big, repeatable goals that you can do, and you build it up over blah, 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 blah. But I have no desire to play. I don't care. And I truly believe if I wanted to, I could learn and I could be incredible. I have no desire to. Like I want to do the podcast. I wanted to get into medical school. Now I don't care about medical school. It means nothing to me. I absolutely could not do that studying. Just like that person could not do the podcast, not because college Tommy wasn't capable, because college Tommy had no interest in it. So like right now, I want to build the podcast. I want to get bigger and better guests. I want to keep doing it. I want to keep improving it. And so I can. So there's kind of a value there. Like you want to learn how to speak their language. It's not like I'm asking you to learn cuneiform or something, or but there's no desire. If I told you I want you to learn how to decipher the hieroglyphics and the pyramids, sure, you would do it 10 minutes a day, but if you don't want to, you won't. So that's kind of the other thing, is there has to be, the fire has to be there to want to do the thing.
Okay, and for me, the fire, I'm feeling really honored that I got invited back. And the fire is, I'm aware that for an American to be learning some Ukrainian, that it shows a lot of respect. And I want to communicate the respect I have. So my motivation is really pretty high to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But good Lord, the stories that are there to be told. Have you heard about filtration camps?
No.
Very few people have. And this is another reason that I want to go back to Ukraine and share these stories. And I'm puzzled. I mean, I'll take all the advice I can about how to handle the following stories, but here's something that the Russians do in every town that they conquer or that they invade. They have what's called a filtration camp. In the filtration camp, it's usually a cellar somewhere, and it's in effect a torture chamber. And what they do is they will take people that they expect to be the leaders of resistance of that town, they'll take them into this torture chamber and they'll ask them to tell who else, give me names, who else would be a source of resistance. And one story that I heard, and this was in August, and I actually saw photographs of the place and the people. They line up. So you've got, is this going to be too tough for our listeners?
No.
Okay, they line up like 10 people who, the mayor or just leaders. They put them in this cellar. And the one that I saw, it was in Irpin. The first person that they ask to give names, he resists. They shoot him in the kneecaps, which I haven't experienced this, but I'm told it's unbelievably painful to have bullets sprayed at your kneecaps. And at that point, his ability to resist giving names is pretty small, but he still does it. So they put a bullet to his head. Then they go to the next guy, same thing. And somewhere by the third or fourth person, you're just so, the trauma of the thing is so much that you're probably talking as fast as you can. And pretty soon they've got names of more people. They bring them in and ask for still more people. And I think in the town of Bucha, I think I'm right on this. I'm going to be directionally right, even if I'm not absolutely right. I think they recovered 400 bodies of people who were killed in order to prevent the town of Bucha being able to resist. And they do that in every town. And by the way, what I saw in Bucha or Irpin, I was in both cities. I think they've gotten worse since, because right now the torture chambers, they have some kind of electrical torture, which I guess is even worse than shooting people.
Can you explain that?
Well, I haven't seen it, and it's been sort of alluded to, but I'm going to know an awful lot more by the end of this month, I hope. But I kind of think that they put electrical currents in places that a man would particularly not like to have an electrical current, and they can modulate it up and down. I've seen pictures, but I haven't seen where they apply these awful things to. But it has been hinted that they're not doing it to your little finger.
Hmm.
But I'll be able to talk a lot more knowledgeably about exactly what they do, because I want to tell this story. Because, there are people, I hear people in America who say, why don't we just have peace? But the trouble is, if you have peace with the Russians, who first of all don't keep their word, they make all these promises and then don't follow through. But the other thing is the places that they conquer, it's not the way we would act if we conquered a place. They just are simply having the populace in terror and killing the leaders.
Yeah, it's definitely easy to say living over here. Be like, why don't you just make peace? I mean, what if China took Florida? Like, would any part of you be like, no, the America in you, the nationalism in any person would be like, the hell with you, no. So it is, I have to admit my own naivety and insulation from it, because I'm sitting in an apartment doing a podcast. There is something like deep in your DNA that doesn't allow you to just roll over.
Yeah, it's a territorial imperative, but even more important than that, I'm thinking of a person I talked with in it was over the internet, because I think almost a day doesn't go by when I'm not talking with a couple of people in Ukraine, friends that I made while I was there. This woman said, I'm not afraid of bombs. I'm not afraid of rockets. I'm not even afraid of death. What scares me really is that the Americans will stop supporting us. Because I do think there are things worse than death. And how about that's like constant terror and having your kids taken away from you? There are things worse They're things that I would die for. I'd die in a heartbeat to keep my kids or my grandkids. And, the Russians, I mean, right now, the figure I have of 250,000 kids, I think I'm going to give a different figure when I come back because it's clearly grown since August. And by the way, General Nebitov, I asked him, is that a real figure? And he said, yeah, we have complete, accurate records. Let me amend that, not complete. We have accurate records of who was taken. I don't think they would say complete. I
What do
mean,
you
just part of this thing, and I want to write about it.
what do you think your ability to speak the language will reveal? Because you're always gonna, it's like they say, if you want to learn a language or learn something about a culture, like you can take all the courses you want, but you got to go like and be inserted into the actual country to learn everything about it. What do you think you'll be able to I say this as someone who's never successfully learned another language. um I think that's the only class I ever got to see and was trying to learn German. But what do you think you'll be able to get out of your next trip by learning the language?
Okay, guaranteed I won't be able to speak it, but I will be able to say, I'm going to guess 80 or so really polite phrases like, I'm so happy to be here. Oh, that food was delicious. Oh, um, I really appreciate Ukrainian people. I've already memorized those. I know how to say that. And so I think, any substantive conversation that I'm going to write about, it's going to be in English. But to show respect for people, the thing is, I've actually done this with other languages. When I was traveling with Frank Perdue when he was still alive and would visit other countries, I would spend 8 weeks before every trip learning polite phrases in whether it's Shanghainese or Mandarin or whatever language of whatever country that we were going to. And when you put 30 or 40 polite phrases together, you can give one heck of a toast. And I learned a bunch of polite phrases when I was there in August. And at the end of my stay there, the general who's in charge of Kyiv police, he gave a dinner for me, and there could have been 20 policemen there, and then a certain maybe 5 or 10 Americans. And he gave this wonderful toast saying how much he appreciated that an American was taking an interest in law enforcement. And it's really good feeling. And then it's my turn to respond. And I had memorized a bunch of really patriotic things to say in Ukrainian, such as, I think a lot of Americans know Slava Ukraine, but that's glory to Ukraine. But there's a whole lot of things that you can say after that, like glory to the soldiers, glory to the country, death to the enemies. I mean, and when you put them all together, it makes one heck of a toast. Including one of the ones that I was most fond of was Putin Hulo, which is, do I dare say this? Yes, I do. Putin, dickhead.
Putin, dickhead.
And, first of all, I think there's a certain shock value that 81-year-old sweet lady like little Mitzi dares to say that. The other one is Ruski Korabel Vaini Irinahui, which means Russian. Do you remember at the beginning of the war, there was a Russian warship that asked Snake Island to give in, and the Ukrainian answered in Russian warship, go fuck yourself.
I knew you were gonna say it. No, I knew what you're talking about. I wasn't sure if you were gonna say it. I wasn't sure if...
Well, yes, I am. I mean, because we're all friends here and we're all adults. I'm kind of hoping my grandchildren aren't watching, but yeah.
That's on you. That's not on me. If
Okay, grandma does know how to say those words, but you shouldn't. But in any case, I particularly love the shock value because, I'm giving this toast and I'm putting together all these polite phrases and somewhat patriotic ones. And it was so funny because the Americans really didn't know what I was saying, but the Russians were just laughing their heads off. partly because I knew it, and partly because I think the shock value that an 81-year-old little old lady will say it.
Do you think that I remember seeing some study, and I have no idea if it's real, and I don't think I could even cite it, so it might as well be bullshit, but it's my podcast, so whatever. But it was like an overlapping timeline of the strength of the Soviet Union falling, climaxing in its collapse, and as well as the development and prevalence of fax machines in Eastern Europe. And it was showing that the permeability of the Iron Curtain and the flow of information was directly, like, you could mirror it with the collapse of the Soviet Union, of any society where there's top down control, right? That wouldn't work in an open society because it's an open society, but something where the power is predicated upon a certain dictatorial, I guess, like maneuvering, and either whether it's tanks or whether it's you know concentration camps or whether it's digital control. I've been thinking more and more about, like, I mean, obviously there are wars and something like that, like a fax machine wouldn't end World War II, but where it's something on a much longer scale, like a Soviet Union or China rising. Do you think that that's something we might see through something like Starlink, like the space-based internet? Whereas I don't know if that would have an effect on the war. I feel like a war is maybe quicker, but over decades, and this would maybe shift to more like something like China or even North Korea. Is this just my own, doe-eyed naivety? But is there something to be said for the permeability of information, for the, dare I say, democratization of the world? Is there something where, like, there was some quote from a Russian or a Soviet general in the Cold War that said, if the Americans really wanted to beat us, they wouldn't drop bombs and spies. They would drop uh, blue jeans and CDs of rock and roll, because the people would see that and go, "What is that? I want that." And whereas I'm not dumb and ignorant of the fact. I mean, I'm friends with Dale. I see through his eyes very much so. Like, no, it does come down to bullets and bombs and blood and who's willing to go farther. I get that. I get that. I don't get that. But on terms of like the much larger glacial pace of the rising and falling of, I mean, look at the impenetrability of the Soviet Union, and it's now a relic. Like, that does end, you know, the unstoppable Nazi army is now something that you can only find in a museum. Like, it does fall. And I know this is kind of a
Well,
180 from what we were talking about, but do you find any, is there any evidence of that? Is that just a really complex sales pitch for Starlink and I should be getting money from them? Like, is this, can the ebbs and flows of tyrannical dictatorships be eroded by different vessels of I guess liberal Western ideals?
well, let's take what's going on in China right now, which fascinates me because for years I used to visit China every year.
And didn't that guy die yesterday or the day before? Some head Chinese official.
Yeah, who's I can't think of his name right now, but he was 96 years old, and he was uh, but on the subject of eroding of power through communications, what I've heard, and who knows, by the time this airs, who knows what will have happened to China. I'm not terribly optimistic because I think their ability to shut things down is very large, but nevertheless, we don't know. But here's what an analysis that I've heard from a person I respect. China, as in the very recent past, has been having a tremendous amount of turmoil, almost unheard of since Tiananmen Square.
Mm-hmm.
With Tiananmen Square, I've heard estimates that they simply shot like 10,000 people to stop it.
Oh yeah.
And they might go do that again. But what sparked it? And what sparked it, we all hear that it's because of COVID, and the economy stalling, and the job possibilities just eroding right and left as Western companies pull out. But what I've heard is one of the biggest sort of impetus of it was the World Soccer Cup. Now, how could that be? Do you want to give a guess? It's cool. It's incredibly cool.
Related to Chinese turmoil.
Exactly.
The World Soccer Cup, which is in Qatar, if I'm correct. Qatar, whatever the pronunciation is.
Let me tell you, because I think
Well,
you're unlikely to
no, hold on,
guess,
I want no, hold on.
unless you can
I
guess.
want to guess. So I'm thinking Chinese turmoil, right? Zero COVID policy, the real estate implosion, the population drop.
And people furious, just furious.
Related to the World Cup.
Related to the World Cup. And I hope our listeners are guessing too, because it's such a goodie. And I can't know that my source is correct, but it sure makes sense. I'll give you a hint. It's been almost 1,000 days that people have been under lockdown.
I would say
That a
that
population almost the size of the United States is locked down.
in China.
In China.
Well,
The,
the
the, the
population.
figure I've heard recently is 300,000. No, whoops. Would that it were that. No, 300 million
So
people.
that would only be a section of China, right? Because China's at like 1.7 billion.
1.4 billion, I think.
1.4.
Okay, so it's not the whole country, but it's approaching the size
So
of
like, yeah, like the urban
United
centers,
States.
the urbans. Okay, I would, if you're saying World Cup, well, lockdown.
Soccer.
Okay, all right. Well, lockdown, that kind of narrowed it in for me. Before you said lockdown, my best guess was going to be that I know in Qatar there have been a lot of people who they're not wearing the LGBTQ rainbow flags, and they're giving pragmatic responses. They're saying, it's their country and these are their rules, just like we can't drink alcohol there. It's the, and then also the underlying is it's not that you're respecting, it's that they'll behead you in the town square because they're psychopaths.
Well, there's that.
That little thing will get you. But I was gonna say along those lines, China is hating how the rest of the world is obeying or playing into other people's culture, but they refuse to go along with China's culture of property theft and human rights. But once you said lockdown, that changes my answer to, if you want to run a country, you got to have bread and circus, and they're just not letting, with the Great Firewall, they're not letting them have the circus.
I think that's a good guess, but are you ready to give up? By the way, you got
I'm
fairly
wrong.
informed, but you weren't there.
All right, I give up. What is it?
Okay. Oh, according to my source, it's just something that like ignited a fire is that if you live in China, what you hear right and left is that China's handling this better than the rest of the world, that the rest of the world, people are just dying like flies, a horrible, miserable death, and that COVID is so terrible that all these lockdowns are justified. Then all of China, I'm exaggerating, many people in China are watching the World Cup, and
Oh,
they see people who aren't masked. They
what
see
the
people,
hell is that? Oh,
and so they're getting a completely different view from outside, which they don't normally get, showing and for proof that this is something that was upsetting to the government, when people started just in social media and just letting their rage be known. Hey, if the rest of the world isn't locked down, why are we locked down? That they began blurring the faces of the audience so that you could.
holy shit! That
Does that make sense to you? Are you
No,
ready
it,
to?
it it does. No, I wasn't looking at it completely. I was thinking, great. We are looking in at China, and we know that they're censored and they can't see the rest of the world. I'm not putting my mind in their mind. They can't see out unless, of course, there's an exception, the soccer cup, and you're going, hey, how come they're not all being sprayed with disinfectant and wearing
And
hazmat?
locked up, and I mean,
Gotcha.
can you imagine just uh,
And then
being
especially a
confined?
strict Middle Eastern country.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but can you imagine being confined or
The faces of the
it's been 1,000 days since you've either been confined or you've been threatened that you don't know tomorrow I might be confined.
yeah.
That's got to be, yeah, psychologically incredibly difficult. So you're on edge anyway, and then you see that the rest of the world doesn't mask. It's got to be enraging.
Blurring the faces of the crowd. That is a dystopian measure I didn't foresee. Blurring the faces of a crowd. That's a whole nother level of, you can see the desperation to remain in power, right? It's like when the CIA was, it's like when they're doing something that is like a lawful special operation, and they redact the name and the date and the location, versus when you see something like released from like Fauci and it's just the entire page is blacked out, and it's like, what are you even? That is an implicate blurring the faces of the. So it's not that you're blurring the faces of like the athletes or something because they're critical of China. Blurring the faces of the crowd because of the nature of their exist. That's another level of wow.
Well, according to my source, it was just a window for them that what they've been told
Wow.
is false, and you can just see it in front of your eyes. The
That
rest of the world isn't falling apart from a terrible disease that's going to kill you.
I mean, that's sorry, I'm stretching my back. That's Plato's allegory of the cave. That is like personified. That
Yeah.
is hmm.
Yeah, to my mind, China is in a real rock and a hard place situation because I've mentioned that I used to visit there every year. There was a family that I visited, and I'd stay there for 2 weeks once a year. But that was over a period of at least 10 years. And I got to know people, I got to know families. I even had a minor social life in China. And the patriarch, oh, I usually turn this off. Excuse me. Let's see who's calling.
You're good. Is it Xi Jinping?
Sorry, guys. Can you monologue while I go shut this up?
I can monologue. Yeah, no, that's another level
No, I'm gonna
of
make
of
it.
of, of evil. What is kind of interesting is tomorrow there's going to be the revealing of the new stealth bomber. Um the successor to the B-2 Spirit, a stealth bomber, the one that looks like an alien black wing. It was revealed in like 1989. The successor to it, the B-21 Raider, is being unveiled tomorrow. And of course, the jokes are always it's being unveiled, which means it's been in operation for a decade. But the B-21, you said to monologue, so I know this is a 180, but the new stealth bombers have been following this for years. I actually called Northrop Grumman in the summer of 2020 doing this podcast, and I was like, "Hey, will somebody come on and talk about the B-21 Raider?" And they tore me a new one and said, "Never call this number again." So, um, but yeah, no, it does seem more and more. So I've been thinking more and more about COVID, and like early on, it was my first response was because the first episode of this podcast is almost 3 years ago, December 12th, 2019. And I think the first episode is about the Hong Kong protests. And I thought, like, how then you have the yellow vest protests in France preceding that. And I think the first reflexive response by a lot of us was like, oh, how convenient. A virus is now ending the protests. And then as it took over the world, I looked at it more and more, then your first knee jerk response is, well, it's a virus that originated in Wuhan, China, by the Wuhan Virology Lab. It seems pretty, put the puzzle pieces together. But I also remember, and I can actually proudly say, very early on, like March 2020, I began thinking like it's almost too obvious. It's almost like a like a Keystone Cop kind of, if it arose right there, that's almost too obvious, which started to make me think that we did it and we released it by them. So looking at China now and the turmoil they're going through and the weird, I mean, we've pretty much exited the mass formation psychosis of COVID here. Like we're out of it. There's some people that are still stuck in it. but it's pretty much it's gone now. China is seemingly tearing itself apart over zero COVID. I mean, they're constructing, like, to this day, they're constructing massive new quarantine camps. They have,
And
I don't know,
imagine how that must make the population hate the government.
even more though. I mean, they've always hated
And the
it.
more they repress it, the more hatred there's going to be.
But this doesn't seem like the actions of a government that released COVID, because now they are seemingly damaging their. So when there are problems at like the Foxconn manufacturing plants and there's shortages, it's zero COVID. And then there's also the argument is China using zero COVID as a cover to disrupt our supply chain. I'm sure there's an aspect of that, an aspect of warfare. But these don't seem like the actions of a country that released it, because we've moved on. They're tearing themselves apart. The only thing China has is numbers, a complete disregard for human life and liberty, and the ability to just throw human labor at cheap manufacturing. That's just what they are. They're robbing themselves of that. This doesn't seem like the actions of a country that released COVID.
Except kind of to me it does. I don't think they if I had to bet, I would guess just playing a lab league. And then I suspect that they did a lot to spread it outside of China. And I
I would
suspect
agree
that
with that.
okay, and I had a discussion with the former deputy editor of the Wall Street Journal of, to me it seemed improbable that they would have zero COVID in China when it was raging throughout the rest of the world. And he said, no, it's possible. They, if you're drastic enough, but it probably won't last. And so it seems to me that it was an accidental release. They did everything they could to spread it and make us
Everyone
not
else
have
getting it.
the personal protection and so on. But now I think that I suspect the reason for the lockdowns is it's almost a virgin population as far as immunity. I mean, anybody but a hermit in the West has been exposed to it. You've either had a vax or you've just plain been exposed to it and have your own immunities. But what about China right now, where their medical system sucks? They really don't have the ability to hospitalize vast numbers of people, but it will happen when you have a population that has no exposure to this. And they may, I mean, I've heard estimates that they may, by the way, I don't know that these are right, but I do know that there are people who are saying this, that it could be 5 million deaths a month. And, what government can survive that?
Well, if anyone could, it would be China. I think their actions to facilitate the spread of it was probably a good tactical maneuver on their end. Let's say we released it. Let's say it really did come from a bat and a pangolin. It's not ethical, but I mean, tactically, I get it. If I'm going to be weighed down, weigh down everybody, right? Because
Right.
their whole thing is
But
playing
I
catch
don't
up.
think it's under dispute that they did everything they could to
Well,
spread
no,
it.
no, not at all, not at all. I'm saying did we release it?
But
Did
it
they
makes
release it?
sense.
Was it intentional? Was it accidental? Did it really come from nature? Wherever, the fact it was there and it was there first, I get it. It's unethical, but I totally I understand. From what little I understand about China, it does make sense. If they're a country playing catch up, hey, you want to bring the rest of the world down. Okay, I got it. I could also see maybe it's my own, maybe I'm not looking deep enough into it. Is it really a psychosis about zero COVID, or is it a real estate bubble, a housing bubble, a population bubble, and they are just using this as an excuse to lock everyone down, because it's becoming clearer and clearer that the select few that are in the inner party are, I mean, 1,000,000 to 1 to the people they rule over. So you could argue that they don't believe zero COVID at all. This is just to end or preemptively, right? Because there were those tanks in front of banks back this summer. Remember
Yeah,
people trying to get their withdrawal and they didn't even, there was no mask. They just dropped the mask and rolled out the
yeah,
tanks.
yeah.
So it might not be a country tearing itself apart over COVID. It's just that this is more socially palatable than just saying we're putting you all in camps. I don't know.
It'll be so interesting to find out. By the way, I've got a real super hard stop because I've
Oh
got
yeah,
no.
sorry. Oh, of
No,
course.
but I would happily be with you for hours, but I do have a hard stop and I'm awful close to it.
Absolutely. I completely lost track of time. Well, Miss Mitzi Perdue, we will wrap this one up. I will put all of your books and writings in the description. I will send you the episode when it is up. And as always, I love you. So thank you for
And I
coming on.
adore you. All right, till next time.
Yes,
Bye-bye.
ma'am. Miss Mitzi Perdue. God bless everybody. Stay safe.